brings us to the other team in Texas, you know, Dallas Cowboys, which you perfectly predicted that they wouldn't let up more than 10 points, which that's correct, but you were just slightly off with what they'd score, 42 to 10. I was saying 42 to 17, but we both agreed that
Yeah.
the Cowboys were going to win. Thoughts on this game?
You know, nothing really stands out on the Dallas side, right? Because when you see 33 points, you kind of expect big stat lines, but you don't really have any big stat lines. You got Dak Prescott 189 yards, 2 touchdowns. You got Tony Pollard with 61 on the ground and a touchdown. Then and then you got Brandon Cooks and CeeDee Lamb with 42 yards and 38 yards respectively. There's just not a lot of cook in there. But the but and then on the flip side of the ball, the Dallas Cowboys was able to keep the Panthers in check, which I think we all kind of expected. No one really expected Bryce Young to go off against a dominant Cowboys defense. He had 123 yards passing, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. The Dallas they kept Chuba Hubbard in check with 10 carries and 57 yards, and then Miles Sanders 11 carries, 50 yards. So I mean, as a unit, they got 110 yards, which is pretty good. And then for Carolina receiving, you had Adam Thielen, 8 catches, 74 yards. So he had a decent fantasy day. Nothing crazy, nothing great. If he had a touchdown, that would have been amazing. Would have made his day even much better. But that went to Tommy Tremble, which was okay. And then Bryce Young also had a fumble. And then Adam Thielen had a fumble, so it kind of hurt his day a little bit. So from both sides, this was a by looking at the stats, you would have thought this was a very boring game to watch. But then looking at the score, you're like, where did all these points come from? Because it doesn't make sense when you look at the stats. People just had these short yard touchdowns. CeeDee Lamb is still the target man, the unquestioned wide receiver one in that offense. I don't think you can really argue that with 9 targets. Tony Pollard looked pretty good. Not great, but he looked pretty good. Can't really argue with that performance. But what I'm really wondering is what were the Cowboys doing? Because you didn't really see a lot of big chunk plays. You saw a lot of check down, a lot of short yardage type stuff. So why were they doing that? And then that part just confuses me. I don't understand what kind of why they were doing the play calls that they were doing.
Yeah, uh,
And then
100%. Like
yeah, for like
you,
it just confused me, because I saw the score. I didn't watch the game at all, but I saw the score and I was like, damn, some player like that must be some pretty good stat heavy game. But then you look at the stats and you're like, what?
well, two turnovers will do that to you, especially in the positions that they happened in. Um, short field positions will do that, and they were doing a
Mm-hmm.
good job spreading the ball around on the ground, um, you know,
Yeah,
they, you know, had 107 yards on the ground, six of it coming from Dak, so 101 by running backs, or by design rush plays, I should say, excuse me. Um,
yep,
so you're looking at it like that, and it's like, okay, that kind of starts to add up. They start chewing the clock a little bit, and all that fun
yeah.
stuff.
So it's one of those games where Dallas controlled the game very very well.
Hmm.
That's all they did from start to finish. They just controlled the game. They didn't
Exactly.
really tried to do anything too risky or try and push the ball downfield. They just wanted to get those plays to get those first downs,
Well,
and they did that very very well.
and Johnny Hecker for the Panthers, he only averaged like 48 yards per punt with a long of
Mm-hmm.
61, and he only had one touchback and one within the 20. So, like, on three of his punts, that means that he was giving up good field position. And then the two turnovers, that's good field position. So you just got to go finish the drive there. And that's exactly what the Cowboys did. Was they went ahead and just finished off the drives, and opportunities that were given to him, and that's what they've been doing all season. You know, the the
Right.
Cowboys controlled the game, and I think you said it best. You know, they just controlled the game from front to back, and that was that.
Yeah, I mean, it was a pretty easy game for the Cowboys, and I think that's really why they just controlled the game because they knew that the game was never that there was never a threat of them losing.
Mm-hmm.
I guess
100%.
Bryce and like Bryce Young kind of played how I thought he was going to play. He had a poor game, the 123 yards passing, touchdown, interception. I
Yeah.
didn't expect a lot from that Panthers offense. What do you think the possibility is of him having like a bounce back year
Bryce Young,
next year? Yeah.
pretty high. I mean, like, here's the thing: is the Panthers haven't started their rebuild yet, and with their signings and shit, these 1 year deals and these deals that are about to expire and shit, they're gonna let a lot of guys walk, especially these older guys, and then they're gonna go and pick up players. Like they got their QB, they got the guy they want, they know who they're building around. I don't think Bryce Young's the issue nearly as much as his offensive line and their running attack. Like Trevor Hubbard and
Mm-hmm.
Miles Sanders, I think have proven that this season, that they are not RB1 material. Miles Sanders had his chance. He looked like an RB1 when he was with Philadelphia, but keep in mind he had help, throughout.
Dominant offensive line.
Yeah, in a dominant offensive line, and a lot of his points, via fantasy. That's why he's such a fantasy sleeper. Like the last few seasons he was with Philadelphia, was off receptions. He wasn't the type of running back that was going to go ahead and grind you yards and go ahead and get you in a position to win the game just off of his legs alone. It's one of those
Mm-hmm.
things where like he was catching a lot. He has very good hands, and that's not how the Panthers are utilizing him. I think they're going to clean house at coaching. It's just like I think that they need to reset everything because you do have Bryce Young, who's very talented, and you see it. You see flashes of it. It's just you don't see how much talent he has when he's getting sacked 7 times a game. We were talking about this a little bit with Zach Wilson the other day.
Yeah.
It it really doesn't help you when you're getting sacked all game long. So far this season, he's been sacked 36 times, and he's been sacked 4 or more times throughout the season, like 7 times.
Mm-hmm.
So 7 times out of 10 games, he's been sacked 4 or more times. That's not acceptable. You can't let your QB be getting hit like that consistently, and especially a rookie. I think Bryce Young will get better at releasing quicker. He already does release pretty quickly, honestly. Um, but it just doesn't help his case when he's trying to get a play to develop and he's getting blown up. He only had 16 completions on 29 attempts, but he only had 1 pick too.
Yeah.
And that's just a reflection of how good that Cowboys defense is, but it's also a reflection on how bad this Panthers offensive line is. And I think as this offensive line improves and as Bryce Young gets used to the speed of the game a little bit more, he's going to go ahead and be better. It's also one of those things where it's like they don't have their first round pick this year. And I think that's kind of the damning thing if you're a Panthers fan. Is like, you're sitting there and you're like, at least we're picking in the top 5. No, you're not, because
Nope.
like, so I don't think that the
Bears
Panthers
are.
yeah, the Bears are picking twice in the top 5. And
Mm-hmm.
like you look at it like, man, I don't know, like that hurts them the most, but they'll still get good players and they still have value, but it's also one of those things where like, throughout the season, Chuba Hubbard and Miles Sanders only has 682 yards collectively, and you just can't have that. Like you need to have a better rushing attack that's reflective of their offensive line. And also I just don't think Chuba Hubbard and Miles Sanders are the best running backs. Adam Thielen is your best receiver by a mile. He has 726 yards on 76 receptions. The next closest receiver is DJ Shark with 229 yards on 17 receptions. It goes back to what I was just saying. Like he doesn't have the weapons. He doesn't have the running attack. He doesn't have the offensive line.
He has no help.
We we were sitting there and saying how good this Panthers defense was and how good it should be in this past all season, but they took a step down. A couple key losses throughout the all season, and also, like they're just injury riddled throughout their whole entire roster. Shaq Thompson's down, Jeremy Chin's down, Justin Houston's down. Like we're talking about a lot of key positions that just they're not there on. You look at the defense and it's just like, yeah, they got Derek Brown still, they got Brian Burns still, but they are really missing Shaq Thompson. They are really missing, Justin Houston. They are really missing Jeremy Chin. Those are key defensive spots that, they have good veteran guys that they're paying a lot of money for, that just aren't playing. And, offensively, like Adam Thielen shouldn't be your primary weapon. You're not going to win a lot of games with Adam Thielen being your primary weapon. And that's not a gash on Adam Thielen. It's just, it's kind of like the Larry Fitzgerald theory, like the Cardinals always had a really good wide receiver one with Larry Fitzgerald. It's just, you need something else other than that as well. DJ Shark is definitely talented enough. It's just, Bryce Young isn't getting enough time in the pocket to utilize him to his maximum potential. And the same thing with Chenault as well, especially on four receiver sets that we see the Panthers try to go into sometimes. It's looking rough, man. So with the Panthers, I don't know. Like, I think that they were expecting to be better this year than 1-9. I think they were expecting to go probably right around 500 and be picking in the middle of the round, and that's why they were willing to make that trade. But all chaos has pursued for the Panthers, excuse me. And, when you're rebuilding a team, you really want to have that first round pick, and especially if you're picking number 1 overall, which is looking like the Panthers might be. Now the Bears might be. And that's a tough thing to deal with.